Hello and welcome to Sleep Stories, the podcast where we listen, we relax, and we get sleepy. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. In this special extended episode, we have a soothing, sleepy retelling of one of Aesop's classic fables, the story of the Astronomer, a gentle tale about the importance of appreciating the beauty and wonders right here around us, while still dreaming of the stars. This expanded version invites you to sink deeply into relaxation, with rich, calming descriptions to help your mind unwind and your body rest. Before we begin the story, let's take a few quiet moments to settle in. Find your most comfortable position under the covers. Let your pillow cradle your head just right. Feel the softness of your sheets against your skin. As you breathe in slowly, and out even slower, notice how your body begins to grow heavier, sinking gently into the mattress. With each exhale, release any lingering tension from the day. Let it drift away like clouds on a calm night sky. Your shoulders soften, your arms relax, your legs feel warm and heavy. There's no hurry here. No place to be but this peaceful moment. And now, as you continue to breathe deeply and easily, let's drift into tonight's story. The Astronomer. Our story tonight. I'm sure we've all spent evenings staring into the empty expanse of outer space, looking at those little twinkling lights in the sky and wondering what lies out there in that eternity of stars. I absolutely love spending evenings doing just that, comprehending the frankly incomprehensible vastness of space. So why not imagine that scene now, as you begin along the path to sleep? Transport yourself back to a time where you lay comfortably, maybe in your garden, in a field, a hammock, or on the beach, and gazed at the stars. Feel the tranquility of that moment envelop you. The peace in realizing how grand the universe is, and perhaps how small and insignificant that made some of the everyday burdens of life seem. The problems we all face day to day are but temporary bumps on a long road. But also, as you gaze out beyond our own world, just remember that your place within the vast universe is every bit as significant as anything else in existence. In this spot, you can be at ease. You can be yourself, completely and fully. And you can rest. It is here, in this moment, staring into space, that our story begins. Once, there lived an astronomer who was utterly mesmerized by the night sky. He would stay awake all night, admiring the constellations sparkling in the darkness overhead. He lived in a small village in ancient Greece, where the mountains climbed gently up from the sea. The hillside was dotted with small white houses, their lights twinkling like a constellation of their own in the evening. But although he lived in a wonderful place, with olive groves swaying in the breeze, the distant murmur of waves against the shore, and air scented with wild herbs and salt, the astronomer had a singular passion. Once he was awakened to the beauty of the night sky, it wasn't long before he cared for nothing else. The astronomer lived in a squat white house, adorned simply with a bed, dresser, desk, and chair. He didn't need much else, because all he did in the house was sleep during the day and record the constellations while sitting at his desk by candlelight. He had no need for a table or chairs for guests, as he rarely entertained a single friend or relative. He had no time for such things when there was always more of the night sky to discover. What wonders must still lie above, he thought, to help people navigate, tell the time, and read the seasons. His dreams, when he finally slept in the warm afternoons, were filled with stars. He wished he could float into space to get a better look at the pinpricks of light that made up his life's work. The little corner of Greece where he lived was blessed with clear skies most nights. No clouds to obscure the view, only the gentle glow of the moon at times, or the soft shimmer of the Milky Way stretching like a river across the heavens. The astronomer wanted to discover as much of them as he could. Each night he wandered further from the village, feet pacing over the rocky ground to see the stars from different viewpoints. In the village, the townspeople farmed, gardened, and fished every day. They rose with the sun, sharing meals in the warm light, laughing over shared stories, tending vines heavy with grapes or nets full of silver fish from the sea. All who lived there knew everything about everyone else: births, weddings, harvests, losses, woven into the fabric of daily life. And so the astronomer felt there was much more possibility in the heavens. Wanting to take full advantage of his nighttime strolls, the astronomer slept in the hot afternoons while his friends and family enjoyed long meals together under olive trees, plates filled with fresh bread, olives, cheese, and wine. At night, while they slumbered soundly in their cool beds, he wandered the fields alone, climbing rolling hills and strolling on rocky paths, always gazing skyward. A storm might break, and the rest of the village awaken to the patter of rain on tiled roofs. But the astronomer would tuck himself away in the privacy of his home and write down his observations from the night before. Then he'd drift off to sleep, dreaming of the night ahead. He was so consumed by the world of galaxies and celestial bodies. All the most exciting things, the astronomer thought, happened at night. During the day, light illuminated all, but when the night sky took over, so much remained a mystery. It was a challenge to learn about it all. He watched the seasons pass through the stars, Orion rising in winter, Scorpio in summer, the landscape changing around him while he slept. Since he only went out at night, the astronomer never noticed the blooming of new flowers in spring or the sweet, earthy scent of autumn leaves. Someone else had already learned all there was to know about everything on land, he thought. What hid in the night sky was untapped potential, secrets and unanswered questions. The astronomer watched Artemis hunt in the stars, sought the gods of Olympus in the constellations. Sometimes, under the glint of the moon, he would visit the temple of Artemis to pay tribute to the beauty shining in the sky above. The temple in his village had an open roof, which was perfect for stargazing. He barely noticed the architect's marble columns or carved statues, as he only cared for the creations above. One night, the astronomer was out for his walk, gazing up at the stars as he always did. The sky was particularly clear, the air crisp and cool after a warm day. The Big and Little Dipper fit perfectly together overhead, like spoons in a drawer. He walked slowly, head tilted back, tracing familiar patterns with his eyes. Cassiopeia's throne, the bright gleam of Vega, the faint haze of the Milky Way. Not looking where he was going, he tripped over a log and found himself tangled in his robes on the ground. The fall was sudden but not hard. Soft earth and dry leaves cushioned him. He lay there a moment, staring up at the stars that had betrayed him by distraction, and chuckled at his own clumsiness. His neighbor happened to hear the commotion and came out to see what had happened. The neighbor, a kind fisherman with weathered hands and a warm smile, hurried over with a lantern, its gentle glow cutting through the darkness. "Are you all right, my friend?" he asked, extending a hand. The astronomer laughed softly, gathering himself together as the neighbor helped him to his feet. "I'm fine, truly. Only a bruise to my pride." As they stood there under the vast sky, the neighbor looked up briefly at the stars, then back at the astronomer. "My friend," he said gently, "why do you spend so much time looking at the stars when you fail to see what is right in front of you?" The astronomer laughed again. He thought of the beauty in the stars and the night sky, the joy of gazing at worlds so far away from his own. But perhaps his neighbor was right. Maybe he spent too much time looking up at the sky and not enough time enjoying what was given to him on Earth. The words lingered as he walked home that night, the stars still twinkling overhead but somehow feeling a little farther away. The astronomer returned home and, for the first time since he was a child, fell asleep at night. The familiar path back to his small white house felt different under his feet that evening. The rocky ground, usually navigated by starlight, now lay in soft shadow as the last glow of twilight faded from the sky. His robes, still slightly rumpled from the fall, brushed against his legs as he walked slowly, thoughtfully. The neighbor's words echoed gently in his mind, not as criticism, but as a quiet invitation to see the world anew. He paused at his door, hand on the cool latch, and looked up one last time. The stars were beginning to appear, familiar friends winking into view, but tonight he did not linger. With a soft sigh, almost of relief, he stepped inside. The house was quiet, moonlight filtering through the small window. Silver light spilled across the simple room, the bed with its woven blanket, the desk cluttered with scrolls and ink, the single chair by the hearth long cold. The air carried the faint, lingering scent of parchment and candle wax from nights spent charting the heavens. He moved slowly, almost reverently, as though the house itself were surprised by his early return. Lighting no lamp, he undressed in the moon's gentle glow, folding his robes neatly over the chair, a habit from childhood he had long forgotten. The bed welcomed him with familiar softness. The mattress, stuffed with wool and herbs, released a faint lavender scent as he settled in. He pulled the blanket to his chin, feeling its comforting weight. Outside, the village was settling into night. He lay in bed, listening to the distant sounds, a dog barking softly far down the lane, perhaps guarding its home, waves against the shore far below, a rhythmic hush-hush that rose and fell like breathing, the faint rustle of wind in olive trees, leaves whispering secrets to one another. These sounds, usually lost to him in the depth of night when he wandered, now wrapped around him like a lullaby. The world was alive even in darkness, not just above, but all around. Sleep came slowly at first, his mind still tracing constellations. Even with eyes closed, he saw them: Orion's belt, the bright arc of the Milky Way, Cassiopeia's throne. Old friends, faithful companions through countless nights. Part of him resisted sleep, reluctant to miss even 1 hour of their company. But tonight was different. The fall, the neighbor's gentle words, the ache in his bruised pride, all conspired to quiet his restless thoughts. Gradually, the stars behind his eyelids faded. The rhythmic waves became a gentle rocking, the wind in the olives a soft sigh. Sleep deepened, peaceful and dreamless. No visions of galaxies or floating among planets, only deep, restorative rest, the kind that mends both body and spirit. He awoke in the morning to the town coming alive. Sunlight streamed through the window, warm and golden. The first rays touched his face gently, like a familiar hand. He opened his eyes slowly, blinking at the brightness, so different from the silver moonlight or candle glow he usually knew. The room was transformed in daylight, white walls glowing softly, dust motes dancing in sunbeams, his desk and scrolls bathed in warm light rather than flickering flame. Birds sang cheerfully outside, their songs bright and varied. A chorus greeted him, sparrows chattering, a dove cooing softly, the bold trill of a nightingale lingering from dawn. The sounds wove together in joyful harmony, filling the air with life. He lay for a moment, listening, feeling the strangeness of waking to morning rather than drifting off at dawn. At first the astronomer felt gloomy. What had he missed in the heavens last night? The thought came sharp and familiar. Perhaps a meteor shower, a new comet, the subtle shift of a planet across constellations. All those wonders unfolding while he slept. His heart sank a little. How many nights had he devoted to the sky, only to miss one now? But then, as he dressed and went outside, a smile slowly grew. He stepped into the morning light, the door creaking softly behind him. The air was fresh with the scent of dew on grass and blooming flowers, jasmine and wild roses releasing their perfume in the warming sun, mingled with the salty tang from the sea far below. The village lane bustled gently with life. Neighbors passed with baskets of bread or jugs of milk, calling greetings, "Good morning," "Beautiful day," their voices warm and welcoming. Children laughed as they chased a hoop down the path. A woman hung laundry on a line, sheets billowing like sails. The baker's oven sent waves of fresh bread sent drifting through the air. The astronomer stood in his doorway, taking it all in. The gloom lifted like morning mist burned away by sun. How had he missed this? The simple, everyday beauty, light warming stone walls, flowers opening to the day, people sharing the quiet joy of a new morning. His smile grew wider, genuine and wondering. The world below the stars was alive in ways he had forgotten, vibrant, immediate, full of small wonders waiting to be noticed. With light steps, he joined the morning, ready to discover what the day might hold. The same neighbor who had helped him the night before invited him over for breakfast. The morning sun had barely crested the olive-covered hills when a gentle knock sounded at the astronomer's door, soft but insistent, like the tap of a bird seeking entry. He stirred from his unusual night's sleep, the first in years unbroken by the call of stars, and rose with a stiffness in his limbs that felt both foreign and invigorating. The air inside his simple white house carried the faint, comforting scent of cool stone and last night's parchment, but outside it promised something new, the fresh breath of day. Opening the door, he found his neighbor standing there, the kind fisherman with calloused hands from hauling nets and a smile as warm as the rising light. His face was weathered by sea wind and sun, lines etched deep from laughter and squinting into horizons, but his eyes sparkled with genuine welcome. "Come, my friend," the fisherman said, clapping a hand on the astronomer's shoulder. "The sun is up, and so are we. Breakfast waits, fresh bread, cheese, olives from the grove. No stargazing talk this morning. Just good food and better company. The astronomer hesitated only a moment, the habit of solitary dawns pulling at him. But the neighbor's easy grin and the distant aroma of baking bread drifting on the breeze tugged stronger. For the first time in memory, he stepped out into full daylight without a glance skyward. There was delicious soft crusty bread, crisp on the outside and doughy on the inside, along with hard cheeses, fresh olives, and a warm mug of strong coffee. They walked the short lane together, the path familiar yet newly noticed under morning light. Dew glistened on wild grasses, sparkling like scattered stars brought to earth. The sea murmured far below, waves lapping rocky shores in endless rhythm. Olive trees arched overhead, silver leaves shimmering, releasing a subtle peppery scent with every breeze. The fisherman's home was one of the small white houses dotting the hillside, tiled roof glowing terracotta in the sun, door framed by climbing vines heavy with grapes. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney, carrying the irresistible perfume of yeast and warmth. Inside, the table was set simply but abundantly in the main room, sunlight streaming through open shutters. The neighbor's wife, a sturdy woman with kind eyes and flour-dusted apron, greeted him with a smile and embrace as if he were family long absent. "Sit, sit," she urged, gesturing to a wooden chair pulled close to the table. "You've slept through too many mornings. Time to taste what the day offers." The bread was perfection, a long loaf still warm from the oven, crust crackling golden brown under gentle pressure, revealing a soft, doughy heart steaming faintly. Torn fresh, it filled the air with yeasty comfort, the kind that evoked childhood tables laden with family. Beside it lay hard cheeses, sharp and crumbly, aged in cool caves, flecked with blue veins of flavor. Fresh olives from the grove, plump, brined in sea salt, their skins wrinkled just so, bursting with earthy tang when bitten. A warm mug of strong coffee waited, steam rising in fragrant curls, dark and robust, brewed from beans roasted over open fire. Its bitterness promised to awaken the senses gently, cut by the sweetness of honey drizzled from a clay pot. How long had it been since the astronomer had eaten freshly baked bread or enjoyed a mug of coffee shared with a friend? He paused, loaf in hand, the question hitting like dawn light through a window. Years, since childhood, perhaps, when meals were feasts with laughter and stories, not hurried bites between stargazing. Nights blurred into days, bread was stale crust, coffee solitary and cold from a flask on lonely hills. Now, tearing the loaf, crust yielding with satisfying crunch, the doughy interior soft and pillowy against his tongue. He tasted not just bread, but memory. Warmth spread through him, chasing away nocturnal chill. The cheese crumbled delightfully, sharp notes dancing with bread's sweetness. Olives popped, brine exploding in salty joy, pit smooth and unexpected. Coffee steamed, bold and grounding, sipped slowly over conversation. Each swallow warmed from within, steam curling past his face like friendly spirits. As they sat and sipped their coffee around the outdoor table, shaded by a grapevine arbor, the astronomer told the neighbor's wife what had happened the night before. The table sat beneath a thick grapevine arbor, leaves heavy and green, clusters of grapes hanging like dark jewels, promising sweetness come harvest. Sunlight filtered through in soft, dappled patterns, warming stone benches without burning. The fisherman nodded encouragingly as the astronomer spoke. The walk, the fall over the log, the neighbor's timely rescue, the simple question, why look to the stars when you miss what's beneath your feet? The wife listened intently, hands folded, eyes kind. "We've missed you in the days, friend," she said softly. "Your knowledge of the heavens is a gift, but life is more than stars. It's this, bread warm from the oven, friends sharing stories, the sun on your face." He spoke haltingly at first, words unused to daylight hours. The fall, humiliating yet humbling. The stars' beauty undeniable, yet perhaps blinding him to earthly wonders. When they were finished, the couple decided to accompany him on a walk around the village. The wife cleared plates with efficient grace, wrapping leftovers in cloth. "Walk with us," she said. "See our village as we see it, not from afar, but close, alive." They were determined to help him experience everything they loved about their hometown. No lectures, no force, just shared joy, gentle invitations to notice. They set off together to walk down the lane. The lane wound gently between houses, whitewashed walls glowing in sun, tiled roofs terracotta warm. Bougainvillea cascaded in pinks and purples over doorways, jasmine climbed trellises, releasing sweet perfume. Children played nearby, laughter bright as bells, chasing hoops or skipping stones. A woman sang softly while hanging laundry, sheets billowing like sails. The fisherman pointed to his boat down by the sea. Feel the salt air? Taste it on your lips. The wife plucked a grape from the arbor. Sweet as friendship, ripened slow. Neighbors waved, called greetings. Join us for lunch? See the new lambs? The astronomer walked slowly, senses awakening. Earth beneath feet, warm, yielding. Breeze on skin, soft, scented. Voices, warm, weaving stories of harvests, births, festivals. They paused at the fruit seller's stand, oranges bright as suns, juice dripping sweet. Taste, she urged, slicing one open. Citrus burst on his tongue, vibrant, alive. At the niece's garden, flowers nodding welcome, red Aphrodite wildflowers piney sweet under the arch, purple irises with yellow hearts, orange lilies flaming, white orchids ethereal. Bees hummed lazy approval, butterflies danced petal to petal. The group grew, neighbors joining, each sharing treasures. Baker's fresh loaf, potter's cool clay jug, shepherd's wool soft as clouds. Temple of Apollo, marble cool underfoot, pillars soaring, breeze whispering through, statues serene in sunlight. He stood still, feet rooted, world moving gentle around him. No need to chase stars when earth held such quiet wonders. Village square lunch, cheeses sharp, bread crusty doughy, olives briny, barley roasted, fruits honey drizzled, wine shared from jug. Flavors burst, salty sweet, crunchy soft, savored slowly, stories flowing like wine. Nap time, but he lay awake, breathing soft, birds twittering, bees buzzing, flowers scenting breeze through window. Senses alive, not rushing, just being. Evening knock, neighbors for mountain picnic. Winding path up, narrow, pebbles underfoot, shrubs rustling, birds overhead. Plateau blankets, finest foods, vegetables crisp, meats tender, eggs sliced golden, wine flowing. Stories shared, laughter echoing off rocks, village twinkling below, peak above. Sunset hues, yellow pink red purple, slow descent, sky painter's canvas. Stars emerge, he points, sharing knowledge, friends gasping wonder. Neighbor, wonderful under stars, but also here, together. Astronomer nods, balance found, beauty above and below. Yawns spread, eyes heavy, pack up, tiptoe down. Home, pillow, blanket on grass. Stars above, earth below, dream in full realization. Doesn't the soft earth feel wonderful beneath your feet? They asked him. The fisherman and his wife walked on either side of the astronomer, their steps unhurried and easy, as though the morning itself had invited them to linger. The lane wound gently downhill from the astronomer's small white house, paved here and there with flat stones worn smooth by generations of feet. But mostly it was packed earth, dark, rich soil from the hillside, still holding the cool moisture of night. The astronomer looked down, truly looked, for perhaps the first time in years. His sandals pressed into the ground with each step, and he felt it yield just slightly. Not muddy, but soft, like a living thing welcoming him. The earth gave a little beneath his weight, then gently pushed back, cushioning his heel, cradling his arch. It was neither hard nor slippery, but perfectly balanced, firm enough to support, soft enough to comfort. He paused, lifting one foot slowly, watching the faint imprint left behind, the shape of his sandal, the curve of his toes. The soil clung lightly to the leather, dark and fragrant. Yes, he said quietly, wonder creeping into his voice. It does feel wonderful. The wife smiled, squeezing his arm gently. We've walked this lane every day of our lives, and still it feels new each morning. The fisherman nodded. The earth remembers us, and we remember it. That's the bargain. Can you smell the fresh bread and coffee all the other villagers are enjoying this morning? The question floated on the breeze, and even as they spoke, the aromas reached him, warm, inviting, impossible to ignore. From open windows and doorways along the lane came waves of scent, the deep, yeasty perfume of bread fresh from stone ovens, crusts crackling as they cooled on wooden boards, the nutty, slightly bitter richness of coffee brewing in copper pots over open flames, hints of wood smoke curling from chimneys, carrying memories of hearths and family gatherings. The astronomer's senses were delighted by the aroma of breakfast wafting from open windows, yeast and warmth, mingled with sea salt on the breeze. He breathed in deeply, letting the scents fill him completely. The yeast was alive, almost dancing in the air, that magical transformation of flour and water into something golden and sustaining. Warmth radiated not just from ovens but from homes, laughter spilling out with the smells, children calling, pots clinking. And beneath it all, threading through like a silver ribbon, the clean, briny tang of sea salt carried up from the shore far below. It sharpened everything, made the bread seem heartier, the coffee more awakening. He closed his eyes for a moment, walking slowly, letting the scents paint pictures in his mind. Families gathered around tables, steam rising from mugs, hands breaking bread together. He noticed how the earth was slightly soft but still firm beneath his feet, cushioning each step he took. With every stride, he became more aware of the ground's gentle embrace. The soil had been warmed by yesterday's sun but retained the cool kiss of dawn. It pressed up against his soles, supportive, alive, part of the same world that produced the olives in the groves, the grapes on the vines, the wheat for the bread now scenting the air. Each footfall was a quiet conversation. "I carry you," the earth seemed to say, and you walk upon me. "We are connected." He felt the subtle variations, here a patch softened by overnight dew, there firmer where stones lay just beneath the surface. A small pebble shifted under his sandal, rolling gently away. The sensation traveled up his leg, grounding him in the present moment. In all the hours he had spent wandering, he'd never realized how wonderful it could be. The thought struck him gently but profoundly. All those nights pacing hillsides and rocky paths, eyes fixed upward, mind lost in constellations. He had felt the ground beneath him, of course, but never truly noticed it. It had been merely something to walk upon, a stage for his stargazing, not a wonder in itself. Now, in daylight, with friends beside him and breakfast scents wrapping around him like a warm shawl, the earth felt alive, giving, resilient, patient. It had waited for him to notice, all these years. If he had paid so much attention to the ground the night before, perhaps he never would have tripped. A small, rueful smile touched his lips. The fall over the log, clumsy, embarrassing, had been the catalyst for this morning's awakening. If he had watched his steps instead of tracing Orion's belt for the 1000th time, he might have seen the obstacle. But then, he might never have heard his neighbor's gentle question, never accepted this breakfast invitation, never discovered the simple joy of earth beneath feet and bread-scented air. Perhaps the trip had been necessary, a small stumble to shake him from his solitary orbit. They walked past a woman selling fruit from a little stand. The stand was simple, a wooden table draped with a colorful cloth, baskets arranged in neat pyramids. The woman herself was sturdy and cheerful, apron tied over her dress, hair pulled back with a bright scarf. Her stand sat at the corner where the lane widened, catching the morning sun. Oranges gleamed like small suns in their baskets, lemons bright as fresh butter, figs dark and velvety, pomegranates jeweled red. "I haven't seen you in a while," the fruit seller called to the astronomer, waving him over. Her voice was warm with genuine pleasure, eyes crinkling at the corners. She had known him since childhood, sold him figs when he was a boy with sticky fingers and curious questions. But in recent years their paths had rarely crossed, his nights claimed by stars, her days by market and family. Now she beamed, wiping her hands on her apron. Come. You look like a man who needs fresh juice. Let's share some fresh juice together." She was already reaching for oranges, plump, heavy, skin dimpled and fragrant. The astronomer approached slowly, drawn by her enthusiasm and the bright colors. His companions encouraged him with smiles. The fruit seller selected the ripest oranges, pressing them gently to test their give. With a small, sharp knife, she sliced one open. The scent burst forth immediately, bright and sunny, citrus oil misting the air like tiny sparks of fragrance. She squeezed the halves over a simple clay press, juice flowing golden and thick into a cup below. Pulp clung to the rind, seeds occasional dark specks in the bright liquid. The aroma was intoxicating. Sweet floral orange blossom notes mingled with tart freshness, cutting through the bread and coffee scents like a cool breeze. She filled 3 cups, one for each of them, and handed them over with pride. The astronomer took his carefully, the clay cool against his palm. He brought it to his lips and sipped. The juice was perfection, cool from morning shade, sweet yet balanced with bright acidity that made his mouth water anew. It coated his tongue with sunshine, bursting with flavor that spoke of trees heavy with fruit, warm days, careful hands. He closed his eyes for a moment, savoring. The fruit seller watched with satisfaction. Better than stars for breakfast, eh? He laughed softly, the first full laugh of the morning, and nodded. The group lingered, sipping slowly, talking of small things, the harvest, children growing, the sea's mood today. The astronomer felt the juice settle warm in his stomach, awakening him gently from the inside out. As they continued down the lane, more neighbors joined, drawn by laughter and curiosity. The fruit seller closed her stand temporarily, basket on arm, determined not to miss the fun. The parade grew, voices mingling, footsteps light on soft earth, scents of breakfast giving way to flowers and sea. The astronomer walked in the middle, senses alive, heart opening like morning blooms. The day stretched ahead, full of simple wonders waiting to be noticed. She squeezed oranges into a cup, the fruit bright and heavy, skin releasing a burst of citrus scent as she pressed. The fruit seller's hands were practiced and sure, fingers strong from years of handling the harvest. She selected 3 perfect oranges from the top of the basket, each one plump and gleaming, skin taut and dimpled like golden silk under the morning sun. They were heavy in her palm, full of juice, the weight promising abundance. She placed one on the small wooden press at the edge of her stand, a simple device of carved olive wood, worn smooth by countless mornings just like this. With gentle but firm pressure, she halved the orange with a short, sharp knife, the blade slicing clean through flesh and rind. The cut released an immediate burst of scent, bright, sharp citrus oil misting into the air like tiny sparks of sunlight made fragrance. The aroma was vivid and alive, sweet orange blossom notes dancing with tart zest, a clean floral freshness that cut through the lingering warmth of bread and coffee from nearby homes. She positioned the halves over the press and squeezed, slowly at first, then with steady rhythm. Juice flowed in golden streams, thick and vibrant, pooling in the clay cup below. Pulp clung to the rind in soft white threads, seeds gleaming dark against the bright liquid like tiny stars in a sunrise sky. The sound was gentle, a soft, wet pressing, the faint creak of wood, the drip-drip of juice into cup. Each squeeze released more scent, wrapping around them like a warm breeze from distant groves. The juice was cool and sweet, floral notes of orange blossoms lingering in the air. The cup filled steadily, liquid glowing like captured sunlight, cool from the morning shade where the oranges had rested. Tiny bubbles clung to the sides, bursting softly, releasing more fragrance. She handed the first cup to the astronomer, then filled 2 more for his companions. The juice was cool against his fingers through the clay, condensation beating on the outside. He brought it to his lips and sipped. When he took his first sip, the cool sweet taste filled his mouth. It was unlike anything he remembered tasting in years. Coolness first, refreshing after the warm walk, then an explosion of sweetness balanced perfectly with bright, lively acidity. The flavor bloomed across his tongue, pure orange, sun-ripened and bursting, with delicate floral undertones like walking through a grove in full blossom. Juice coated his mouth in silky richness, pulp soft and yielding between teeth. Each swallow brought new layers, sweet at the front, tart at the finish, leaving a clean, lingering brightness. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the taste settle. It was simple, yet profound, direct from earth and sun to hand to mouth. Yes, he mused to himself, the stars at night are beautiful, but you can't drink the stars. The thought came gently, almost with a smile. The stars, distant, eternal, glittering with cold light, offered wonder and mystery, but no sustenance for the body, no immediate joy for the senses. They could not quench thirst on a warm morning, could not fill the mouth with sweetness grown from soil and rain. This juice, earthly, immediate, shared, was a different kind of wonder. Born of roots in dark soil, leaves drinking sunlight, blossoms visited by bees, fruit ripened under the same sky he studied at night. In that moment, the astronomer thought the glittering constellations only looked half as sweet as this earthly delight. He sipped again, slower now, savoring. The constellations, Orion's belt, the Pleiades' delicate cluster, Cassiopeia's throne, were breathtaking in their vastness, their ancient light traveling unimaginable distances. But their beauty was remote, intellectual, observed from afar. This juice was intimate, cool on his tongue, sweet in his throat, warming him from within. It connected him directly to the world beneath his feet, the grove where these trees grew, the hands that tended them, the sun that ripened the fruit. Half as sweet. No, perhaps sweeter in its own way because it was here, now, shared. When the neighbors told the fruit seller of their mission to help him see the beauty of the town, she said they must go and visit her niece's garden, for if anyone was enjoying the wonders on earth, it was the best place in town to do so. The fruit seller listened with bright eyes as the fisherman explained, the astronomer's fall, the question about looking up instead of down, the breakfast invitation, this new awakening to daylight wonders. She clapped her hands together, juice-stained fingers leaving faint orange marks on her palms. "Of course," she exclaimed. "He must see my niece's garden. If anyone knows how to drink in the earth's delights, it's her. Flowers that sing with color, scents that dance on the breeze. It's a little piece of paradise right here in our village." She closed her stand with quick efficiency, covering baskets with cloth, securing the press, and joined the growing group, basket of remaining oranges slung over her arm. The party set off down the lane, voices mingling in easy chatter, footsteps light on the soft earth. The astronomer walked in the center, juice cup still in hand, sipping occasionally, the taste lingering like a promise of more wonders to come. The lane curved gently, lined with whitewashed houses and flowering vines. Children peeked from doorways, curious about the procession. A dog trotted alongside for a while, tail wagging. The fruit seller led the way, humming a soft tune, her scarf fluttering in the breeze. The garden waited, and with it, new earthly delights to discover. "I'll show you the way," she said, closing up her stall in favor of a new adventure. The fruit seller spoke with bright enthusiasm, her eyes sparkling like the citrus she had just pressed. She moved quickly, practiced hands folding a clean cloth over the remaining baskets of oranges and lemons, securing the wooden press with a leather strap. The stand, little more than a sturdy table draped in faded blue linen, looked suddenly quiet, as though it too understood the importance of this morning's journey. She slung a small woven basket over her arm for any treasures they might gather along the way, then turned to the group with a wide, welcoming smile. "Come," she said, gesturing down the lane. "My niece's garden is not far, just past the olive grove and around the bend by the old well. You'll love it. It's like stepping into a little piece of paradise." The astronomer nodded, still holding his clay cup of juice, the last sweet drops cool on his tongue. The fisherman and his wife fell in beside him, and the fruit seller led the way, her steps light and purposeful on the soft earth. As they walked down the lane, more and more of their neighbors came out to join them. The lane curved gently between whitewashed houses, sunlight warming the stone walls and glinting off tiled roofs. Doors opened one by one as villagers caught sight of the growing group. First a curious glance, then recognition, then delighted smiles. An elderly baker emerged from his doorway, flour-dusted apron tied around his waist, carrying a small loaf still warm from the oven. "Is that the astronomer?" he called, voice rich with surprise. "Out in daylight? Come, you must taste this, baked with rosemary from my own patch." He tore the loaf, steam rising fragrant and herby, and passed pieces around. The crust crackled under fingers, the inside soft and pillowy, scented with wood smoke and garden herbs. A young mother with a toddler on her hip paused at her gate, eyes widening. "We've missed you at the festivals," she said softly. "Walk with us, my boy loves the fountain in the square." The toddler reached out chubby hands, offering a daisy plucked from the grass. More joined, the potter with clay still under his nails, the weaver carrying a bundle of dyed wool in sunset colors, the shepherd smelling of lanolin and fields. Each brought a greeting, A small gift, a story. They weren't used to seeing the astronomer out and about during the day, so they each had a spot they wanted to show him. Whispers rippled through the growing crowd. "He's walking with us. In daylight. After all these years." Each neighbor had a favorite place, a hidden treasure of the village they longed to share. The baker insisted on a detour to his courtyard oven, still radiating warmth, where loaves cooled on wooden racks. The mother led them to the square's fountain, cool water bubbling from a carved stone fish's mouth, children splashing laughter into the air. The potter paused by his workshop door, open to reveal wheels and wet clay, the earthy scent of creation thick in the air. The weaver spread a corner of her latest cloth, deep blues and greens like sea and sky woven together. The shepherd pointed to his flock grazing on the hillside, white dots moving slowly against green. The astronomer couldn't remember the last time he'd been around so many people. The realization settled gently, like morning dew. For years his world had been solitary, nights alone under vast skies, days sleeping in quiet shadow. People were distant lights, like stars, beautiful from afar, but untouchable. Now he walked in the midst of them, surrounded by voices and laughter, hands brushing his arm in greeting, eyes meeting his with warmth. The press of bodies was gentle, not overwhelming, space enough to breathe, but closeness enough to feel connected. Children darted between legs like minnows. Elders walked slowly, arms linked. The group moved as one down the lane, a living river of community. He had opted for the quiet of night rather than the noises of daytime, but now that he was truly listening, he could hear the music in his friends' voices, laughter bright as birdsong, stories shared with warmth. The sounds wrapped around him like a favorite blanket. Laughter bubbled up frequently, bright peals from children, deep chuckles from men, soft giggles from women. Each voice carried its own timbre, the baker's rich and hearty, the fruit seller's quick and melodic, the mother's gentle and soothing. Stories flowed, of harvests and storms, weddings and births, small daily miracles. The potter told of a vase that survived firing, perfectly shaped. The weaver spoke of dye from madder root, turning cloth the color of sunrise. The astronomer listened, truly listened, letting the voices wash over him. There was music here, not the silent symphony of stars, but a living chorus, warm and immediate. When the group arrived at the niece's garden, she welcomed them with open arms. The garden lay just beyond the village proper, a generous plot enclosed by a low stone wall overgrown with climbing roses. A wooden gate stood open, painted soft blue, arching with vines heavy in summer but still green and lush. The niece, a young woman with sun-browned skin and hair tied back with ribbon, stood at the entrance, apron over her dress, hands earthy from tending soil. Her face lit with genuine delight at the sight of the crowd, especially the astronomer in their midst. "What an honor to have the great astronomer in my garden for the very first time," she said with a smile. She opened her arms wide, embracing the fruit seller, her aunt, then the others in turn. When she reached the astronomer, her hug was warm and sincere. "We've heard such tales of your stargazing," she said, eyes bright. "But now you must see what grows under the sun." Together he and the townspeople admired the flowers. The garden unfolded like a living painting, paths of crushed gravel winding between beds bursting with color and scent. Roses climbed trellises in pinks and reds, jasmine released sweet perfume in waves, lavender borders hummed with bees. The niece led them gently, pointing with pride. The niece pointed to a bunch of red blooms growing around a wooden archway. "These are special," she said, guiding them beneath the arch. "Wild roses, said to be gifts from Aphrodite herself. They bloom fierce and fragrant." The roses were deep crimson, petals velvet soft, centers golden with stamens. They climbed the wooden arch in profusion, framing the sky like a living portal. The scent was rich, rose with hints of apple and honey, warmed by sun. The astronomer stood beneath, head tilted back, letting petals brush his hair. Bees droned lazily overhead, sunlight filtering through leaves in dappled patterns. He breathed deeply, the fragrance filling him completely. Next, purple irises, tall and elegant, petals opening like butterfly wings, white veins guiding to yellow hearts. Then orange lilies, bold flames against green, freckled and fragrant. White orchids, delicate, exotic, nodding in shade. Herbs bordered paths, rosemary sharp and piney, thyme earthy, mint cool and bright. The group wandered slowly, senses immersed, colors vivid, scents layered, textures soft under fingers. Laughter and quiet exclamations filled the air. "Look at this! Smell those!" The astronomer moved among them, part of the flow, heart opening to Earth's quiet symphony. The garden was paradise, not distant stars, but here, now, alive. "These are special wildflowers created by Aphrodite," she told him. The niece spoke with quiet pride, her voice soft against the gentle rustle of leaves overhead. She stood beneath the wooden archway, one hand resting lightly on the rough bark, the other gesturing toward the cascade of red blooms that climbed and twined around it like living flames. The arch itself was simple, weathered oak beams joined in a graceful curve, aged to a warm, honeyed brown by years of sun and rain. Vines had claimed it completely, wrapping thick green stems around every inch, leaves glossy and heart-shaped, providing dappled shade beneath. But it was the flowers that commanded attention, clusters of wild roses, deep crimson petals unfurling in layers of velvet softness. Each bloom was perfect in its imperfection, some fully open, revealing golden centers dusted with pollen, others still cupped like secrets, edges kissed with dew. The astronomer stood under the arch, admiring the red and green mixing with the brown wood overhead. He tilted his head back slowly, letting the play of color fill his vision. The red of the roses was rich and vivid, not a flat crimson, but layered with subtle variations. Deeper garnet at the heart, lighter scarlet at the edges, veins of darker hue threading through like hidden rivers. Against the fresh emerald of the leaves and the warm, earthy brown of the wood, the effect was breathtaking, a living tapestry woven by nature herself. Sunlight filtered through gaps in the foliage, catching on petals and turning them translucent, glowing like stained glass. Tiny droplets of morning dew clung to edges, sparkling like scattered diamonds. The flowers smelled piney and a little sweet. He breathed in deeply, and the scent enveloped him. First a sharp, resinous note, like crushed pine needles warmed by sun, fresh and invigorating. Beneath it lay sweetness, not cloying, but delicate, like honey warmed on the tongue, mingled with a faint fruity tang. The combination was intoxicating, green and growing, wild and free. It spoke of hidden groves and secret places, of earth rich with life. He enjoyed them immensely, the soft petals brushing his fingers, the gentle hum of bees nearby. Reaching out tentatively, he touched one bloom. The petal was velvet under his fingertip, impossibly soft, cool from shade, yielding gently to pressure. He traced its curve, marveling at the texture. Silky outer surface, faint veins beneath like delicate embroidery. Another petal brushed his cheek as he stood closer. Accidental, yet welcome, leaving a faint trace of scent on his skin. All around, bees moved in lazy contentment, fat and golden, wings a blur of motion. Their hum was low and soothing, a constant gentle thrum that vibrated through the air like distant music. One bee landed briefly on a nearby bloom, legs dusted yellow with pollen, before lifting off again in graceful arcs. The sound and scent and touch wove together into something greater than each part, a living moment of pure sensory delight. Next they looked at a patch of beautiful purple irises. The niece led him gently onward, along a gravel path that crunched softly underfoot. The group followed in quiet appreciation, footsteps hushed as though in a sacred place. They came to a sunny border where irises stood tall and proud, stems straight as arrows, leaves sword-like and graceful. The flowers themselves were masterpieces of color. Deep royal purple petals, velvety and rich, falling in elegant falls and rising in delicate standards. When the astronomer peered at them closely, he could see the white circles surrounding the yellow center that gave the flower its distinctive name. Kneeling carefully, mindful of his robes on the damp earth, he brought his face level with one bloom. The purple was not uniform but shaded, darker at the edges, lighter toward the heart, with faint veining like marble. At the center, a circle of pure white, crisp and clean, surrounded a beard of bright yellow, fuzzy and inviting to pollinators. Tiny details revealed themselves, delicate ruffles along petal edges, a faint sheen like silk, the way light caught and deepened the color. He had seen illustrations of irises in books, perhaps, but never like this, alive, breathing, perfect in their imperfection. They gazed at orange lilies and white orchids, immersing themselves in the fresh and fragrant air of the garden, roses, lavender, jasmine all mingling in a soothing perfume. The lilies came next, bold and flamboyant, trumpets of flame orange opening wide to the sun. Each petal curved back gracefully, spotted with dark freckles, stamens heavy with golden pollen. Their scent was lighter than the roses, sweet with a hint of spice, carried on warm air. White orchids grew in shaded corners, delicate, ethereal, petals like porcelain. Some were pure white, others touched with faint pink veins, centers glowing soft yellow. They seemed almost afloat, so light and graceful were their forms. The garden's perfume enveloped them completely, the deep sweetness of roses, the clean sharpness of lavender, the heady richness of jasmine blooming on vines nearby. Scents layered and shifted with each breeze, now rose dominant, now lavender's calming presence, now jasmine's intoxicating warmth. The group moved slowly, senses immersed. Hands brushed petals gently, noses inhaled deeply, eyes drank in color and form. When it was time to leave, the niece decided to join the rest of her neighbors on their walk around the village. The sun had climbed higher, warming the garden paths, bees humming contentedly among the blooms. Reluctantly, the group gathered at the gate, brushing pollen from fingers, smoothing aprons and robes. The niece locked the gate carefully behind them, then turned with a bright smile. "I'll come too," she said. "The garden will still be here tomorrow, but this walk, this morning, is special." Watching the astronomer experiencing these pleasures for the first time was reminding everyone just how wonderful life on Earth could be. As they set off once more down the lane, now a larger, merrier group, conversation flowed like gentle streams merging. The astronomer walked in the center, surrounded by voices and warmth. Children darted ahead and back, bringing small treasures, a smooth stone, a feather, a particularly bright leaf. Each neighbor shared memories. Remember when the roses bloomed early that year? The lilies were taller than the children. The astronomer's heart felt full, not with the vast wonder of stars, but with the intimate wonder of shared moments, of Earth alive and generous beneath their feet. The village unfolded around them, white walls glowing, sea sparkling in the distance, scents of bread and flowers and salt mingling on the breeze. Life on Earth. Simple, immediate, beautiful. And for the first time in years, the astronomer felt truly, deeply at home. The astronomer strolled in the middle of the group as they left the center of the village and continued down the road to the Temple of Apollo. The lane widened as they moved away from the cluster of white houses, the path becoming a gentle road of packed earth bordered by low stone walls and wild olive trees. Sunlight poured down in warm abundance, the sky a perfect, cloudless blue that stretched endlessly above the hills and sea. The group walked in easy companionship, no hurry, no destination pressing upon them beyond the simple joy of the journey. Children skipped ahead, then circled back like swallows. Elders moved slowly, arms linked, voices low and contented. The fruit seller hummed a soft tune, her basket swinging lightly at her side. The baker shared another piece of rosemary bread, tearing it into small portions that passed hand to hand. The astronomer found himself at the heart of it all, surrounded by warmth both literal and human. Neighbors walked close, occasionally brushing his sleeve or offering a smile. Their voices wove around him like a gentle tapestry. Stories of the day's small miracles, laughter at shared memories, quiet observations of the beauty unfolding. He felt carried along, not leading nor following, but simply part of the flow, a leaf on a kindly stream. The pillars of the temple glittered in the sunlight. As they crested a small rise, the Temple of Apollo came into view, majestic yet welcoming, perched on a plateau overlooking the village and sea beyond. Its columns rose tall and straight, carved from pale marble that caught the sun and threw it back in sparkling brilliance. The stone seemed alive with light, veins of quartz and mica glinting like embedded stars, the surface polished smooth by centuries of wind and reverence. Each pillar stood proud, fluted edges casting delicate shadows that shifted slowly as the sun climbed. The astronomer paused, breath-catching. He had passed this temple countless times at night, glimpsed its silhouette against star-filled skies, but never like this, bathed in golden daylight, shimmering as though the god himself had touched it with fire. The astronomer noticed the change underfoot as he stepped from the dark path to the temple's marble floor, cool and smooth after the warm earth. The transition was immediate and profound. One moment his sandals pressed into the soft, giving soil of the road, warm from sun, slightly dusty, alive with a memory of countless footsteps. The next, he crossed the threshold onto the temple's wide platform of polished marble. The stone was cool beneath his soles, deliciously so after the growing warmth of the day. Smooth as river-worn glass, it reflected faint images of sky and pillars above. Each step produced a soft, satisfying sound, a gentle tap that echoed slightly in the open space. He wiggled his toes against the marble, savoring the contrast, cool firmness after Earth's yielding softness. It grounded him in a new way, this unyielding beauty crafted by human hands in honor of divine. The heat of the day was growing, and he appreciated the cool ground beneath him and the roof above. The sun had climbed higher, its rays strong and direct, warming skin and stone alike. Sweat beaded lightly on brows, and the air carried the faint, dry scent of heated earth and distant pine. But within the temple's embrace, beneath the wide roof supported by those glittering pillars, shade offered gentle relief. The marble radiated stored coolness from night, a gift preserved for daytime visitors. A soft breeze found its way between the columns, winding playfully around legs and robes, carrying hints of sea salt and wild thyme from the hills. It was quite different from the Temple of Artemis, with its open roof for stargazing. The memory rose gently, nights spent in the smaller temple dedicated to the huntress goddess, lying on cool stone beneath an open sky, stars wheeling overhead in silent majesty. That temple had felt like a window to the heavens, roofless and intimate with night. This one, Apollo's, was open yet sheltered, embracing both sun and shade. Light poured in from all sides, illuminating every carving, every corner, while offering protection from the day's intensity. Two faces of divinity, perhaps, one for mysterious night, one for radiant day. He took a moment to stand still, feet pressed into the marble, a gentle breeze winding its way through the pillars, keeping him cool in the shade. He stopped near the center, beneath the highest part of the roof. Feet planted firmly on the cool stone, he closed his eyes briefly, letting sensations wash over him. The marble beneath, smooth, unyielding, yet welcoming. Coolness rising through soles, easing the warmth of walking. The breeze, playful, caressing cheeks and neck, lifting hair gently, carrying scents of sea and sun-warmed stone. Sunlight at the edges, bright and golden, contrasting with deep shade where he stood. The sounds, distant voices of his companions exploring, footsteps echoing softly, birds outside, waves far below. All of it present, immediate, alive. The other townspeople wandered and explored the building, admiring the statues and carvings on the walls. They moved in small groups or pairs, voices hushed with respect yet warm with wonder. Fingers traced carvings delicately, scenes of gods and heroes, laurel wreaths, lyres and sun chariots. Statues stood in niches, Apollo himself, golden-haired and serene, Artemis hunting, muses dancing. Marble cool and smooth, details exquisite even after centuries. Children pointed excitedly at familiar myths depicted in relief. Elders shared stories passed down through generations. The astronomer watched from his still point, content to observe the gentle motion around him. He enjoyed the feeling of staying still while the world moved around him. For so long, he had been the one in motion, pacing hills at night, eyes searching endless skies. Stillness had been for sleep, for recording observations. Now, standing motionless in shade and breeze, he discovered a different kind of richness, being the calm center while life flowed gently past. Friends laughed softly at a carving. A child ran light-footed across marble. Breeze stirred robes and hair, all of it beautiful in its simple being. Perhaps, he thought, one need not always be in motion. The idea settled peacefully in his heart. Motion had purpose, discovery, seeking, understanding. But stillness too had its gifts. Presence, appreciation, rest. Sometimes it was best to take a break from work and study and just enjoy existing in the moment. He breathed deeply, feeling the cool marble beneath, the gentle breeze around, the warm sunlight at the edges, the quiet joy of companions nearby. No need to chase stars or answers. Just this, existing fully in the beauty of now. The group would move on soon, to lunch in the square, perhaps, or further wonders. But for these few minutes, he lingered in stillness, heart full and quiet. The day stretched ahead, warm and welcoming, full of earthly gifts waiting to be savored. When he was ready, he walked slowly around the walls of the temple, admiring the details the great artists and architects had embedded. Intricate friezes telling stories of gods and heroes, sunlight catching on polished stone. The stillness that had held him in the temple's center gradually softened, like morning mist giving way to full daylight. The astronomer drew a slow breath, feeling the cool marble beneath his sandals and the gentle breeze weaving through the pillars, and then he began to move. His steps were unhurried, almost reverent. The marble floor stretched wide and smooth before him, reflecting faint patches of sky and pillar shadow in its polished surface. Each footfall produced a soft, clear tap that echoed gently in the open space, mingling with a distant murmur of his companions' voices and the occasional trill of a bird outside. He circled the inner perimeter of the temple slowly, eyes tracing the walls with the same careful attention he once reserved for constellations. The stone was pale and luminous, warmed by centuries of sunlight, its surface alive with stories carved in exquisite relief. The friezes unfolded like scrolls of living myth. Here was Apollo himself, golden-haired and radiant, drawing his bow against the python, muscles taut, expression serene yet fierce. There, Artemis hunted with her nymphs through sacred groves, deer leaping gracefully beside her. Hermes sped on winged sandals. Dionysus reveled with satyrs and maenads, vines heavy with grapes twining around them. Every figure was rendered with breathtaking skill, folds of robes flowing as though caught in eternal wind, faces expressive even in stone, joy, determination, sorrow, triumph. Sunlight slanted through the columns, catching on raised edges and casting delicate shadows that gave the scenes depth and movement, as though the gods themselves might step forward at any moment. The astronomer paused often, leaning closer to study a detail, the delicate veining of a marble leaf, the individual strands of a hero's hair, the subtle curve of a lyre's strings. His fingers hovered near the stone, not quite touching, tracing patterns in the air. The carvings felt alive beneath the play of light, polished surfaces gleaming softly, shadows pooling in carved hollows like ink in ancient scrolls. When the sun rose higher in the sky, the group left the temple and gathered in the shaded village square for lunch. The morning had ripened into full warmth, sunlight pouring generously over rooftops and lanes. As they descended from the temple plateau, the breeze carried hints of sea salt and baking bread, mingling with the lingering coolness of marble still on their skin. The village square lay at the heart of everything, a wide, open space paved with smooth stones, shaded by ancient plane trees whose broad leaves formed a living canopy overhead. Sunlight dappled the ground in shifting patterns, and a central fountain bubbled softly, its water catching light in tiny rainbows. Benches and low walls ringed the space, perfect for resting. Villagers often gathered here, to share news, play games, celebrate festivals. Today it welcomed the wandering group with open arms. They spread blankets and cloths on the cool stone, unpacking baskets with practiced ease. The air filled with the rustle of unwrapping, the clink of clay cups, laughter bright and unhurried. They each shared what they had: soft cheeses, leftover bread from the morning, roasted barley, juicy olives. The offerings were simple yet abundant, each item a small gift from someone's labor and love. The baker produced more of his rosemary bread, still faintly warm, crust golden and crackling, interior soft and fragrant with herb and wood smoke. The fisherman's wife brought soft cheeses wrapped in fig leaves, creamy white, tangy and rich, some flecked with herbs, others plain to highlight their milky sweetness. Roasted barley came from the farmer, nutty grains toasted golden, crunchy and satisfying. Olives, plump and brined, skins shining, filled baskets in shades of black and green, salty and earthy. Fresh figs, grapes, and pomegranates appeared from various pockets, sweet jewels of the season. Wine was poured from a shared jug, light and red, tasting of sun-ripened grapes and distant hills. The astronomer relished each burst of flavor in his mouth. He sat cross-legged on a blanket, plate balanced on his knees, and ate slowly, truly slowly, for the first time in memory. The bread tore with a satisfying crunch, crust giving way to soft, herb-scented interior that melted on his tongue. Rosemary released its piney warmth, mingling with faint smokiness from the oven. Cheese spread easily, creamy and rich, coating his mouth in gentle tang that lingered pleasantly. Barley crunched between teeth, nutty, toasty, deeply satisfying in its simplicity. Olives burst with briny juice, salty sea and earth combined, pits smooth and unexpected. Figs were velvet soft, honey sweet, grapes cool and crisp, juice running down his chin, pomegranates tart and bright, seeds like tiny rubies popping with flavor. Wine washed it all down, light, fruity, warming from within. Before, he had hurried through meals, stealing bites in between long periods of stargazing. The memory rose gently, nights on hillsides with a cold flask of wine and stale bread, eaten absently while eyes searched the heavens. Meals were fuel, quickly consumed, barely tasted. Food sustained the body so the mind could chase stars. Days slept away left little time for shared tables. Now he appreciated taking the time to savor these delicious foods, how the crunchy barley and soft cheese complemented each other perfectly, the salty tang of olives bursting on his tongue. Each bite became a small meditation. Barley's nutty crunch against cheese's creamy yield, textures dancing, flavors deepening one another. Olive salt cutting through richness, awakening the palate for the next sweet fig. Bread's warmth cradling everything, rosemary whispering of gardens and hearths. He chewed slowly, eyes half closed, letting flavors unfold layer by layer. The group's gentle conversation flowed around him, stories, laughter, quiet contentment, but he was fully present in the act of eating, of being nourished not just in body but in spirit. The square shaded them gently, plane leaves rustling overhead, fountain murmuring, breeze carrying scents of flowers and distant sea. Children played nearby, voices bright. Elders shared wine and memories. The astronomer felt part of it all, connected, grounded, alive in the simple joy of shared food and company. The day stretched warm and full ahead, more wonders waiting perhaps, but for now this moment was enough. Complete, perfect, delicious. When they'd finished the main course, the fruit seller fetched a basket of her produce for dessert. The shaded square had grown warm and languid with the fullness of lunch. Plates emptied, wine cups drained to their last ruby drops, conversations softened to contented murmurs. Sunlight filtered through the plane trees in shifting golden patterns, warming stone benches and casting gentle shadows that danced across faces relaxed with good food and company. The fruit seller rose with a satisfied stretch, her colorful scarf fluttering lightly in the breeze. "Wait," she said with a mischievous smile. "The best is yet to come." She reached for the woven basket she had carried all morning, tucked beneath the bench, protected from the sun. Lifting the cloth cover, she revealed her treasures, fruits gathered at perfect ripeness, gleaming like jewels in the dappled light. Figs plump and dark, their skins velvety purple-black with a faint bloom of natural wax. Bunches of grapes, deep crimson and pale green, heavy on the stem, skins taut and shining. Pomegranates round and regal, their crowns still attached, skins blushing from deep red to golden pink. A few late-season peaches, fuzzy and fragrant, nestled among them. The villagers drizzled the different fruits with honey, making them even sweeter and more decadent. A small clay jar of honey appeared, golden and thick, harvested from hillside hives where bees feasted on wild thyme and lavender. The fruit seller passed it around, and each person took a turn drizzling the amber liquid in slow, deliberate streams. Honey caught sunlight as it fell, glistening threads that pooled in fig crevices, coated grape skins in glossy sheen, traced pomegranate crowns in sticky gold. The scent rose immediately, warm floral sweetness, rich and heady, mingling with the fruit's own perfumes. The astronomer watched, fascinated. He had tasted honey before, of course, spread thinly on stale bread during long nights, but never like this, never lavished so generously on fresh, sun-ripened fruit. The astronomer took a bite of each, delighting in the rich flavors, figs soft and sweet, grapes bursting with juice, pomegranates tart and bright. He began with a fig, honey glistening on its dark skin. The fruit yielded softly under his teeth, skin giving way to velvety flesh filled with tiny crisp seeds. Sweetness bloomed immediately, deep and earthy, intensified by honey's floral warmth. The texture was luxurious, soft yet substantial, seeds adding gentle crunch. Next, a grape, crimson, cool from shade. He placed it whole in his mouth and bit down. Juice exploded in a rush of sweetness, bright and pure, skin snapping delicately. Honey coated it in extra richness, turning simple grape into something almost decadent. Then pomegranate. He cracked one open with careful fingers, revealing the jewel-like arils within, ruby red and glistening. Each seed burst between teeth with tart brightness, a lively contrast to honey's mellow sweetness. The flavor danced, sharp, then sweet, then sharp again, waking his palate completely. Peaches last, skin fuzzy and warm, flesh golden and dripping. Biting revealed juice that ran down his chin, honey mingling in perfect harmony, sun-ripened sweetness elevated to pure indulgence. He ate slowly, eyes half closed, letting each flavor unfold fully. The group watched with quiet smiles, content to see his delight. After the meal, the people lazily walked back to their homes for a nap. Plates and cups gathered, blankets folded with unhurried movements. The square emptied gradually, voices softening, footsteps slow on warm stone. Sunlight had reached its peak, air heavy with warmth and the drowsy hum of insects. The villagers moved in ones and twos down familiar lanes, waving sleepy goodbyes, promising to gather again soon. Children trailed behind parents, eyelids heavy. Elders leaned on arms, content. The astronomer walked with them part way, juice and honey still sweet on his tongue, body relaxed with fullness. They waved goodbye to each other, promising to visit again soon. At each doorway, farewells were warm and lingering. Until evening. Come for coffee tomorrow. Hands clasped, cheeks kissed, smiles shared. The village felt woven together by these small threads of connection. The astronomer returned the waves, surprised by how natural it felt. Sleep during the day was one thing the astronomer was used to, but when he got home and lay down on his bed, he couldn't fall asleep. His small white house welcomed him with cool shade and quiet. Sunlight filtered softly through shutters, casting striped patterns on the floor. The bed, simple mattress stuffed with wool and lavender, invited with familiar comfort. He lay down fully clothed, expecting sleep to claim him quickly as it always had after nights of wandering. But his eyes remained open, mind gently alert. Instead he paid attention to the soft sound of his breath moving in and out of his body. He listened, truly listened, to the rhythm. In, slow and deep, chest rising gently. Out, softer, releasing warmth and tension. The sound was intimate, constant, a quiet tide within. No hurry. No need to force sleep. Just this, breath, steady and alive. He listened to the gentle twittering of birds outside, accompanied by the soft buzzing of bees. From the open window came layers of sound, sparrows chattering brightly in the olive tree, a dove cooing its mellow note, swallows darting with high-pitched calls. Bees moved among flowers, a low, contented hum, steady as a heartbeat. The sounds wove together, nature's gentle symphony, familiar yet newly noticed. Through the open window he smelled the flowers in the garden. A light gust of wind brought in all the delightful aromas of herbs, spices, and greenery. Scents drifted in waves, jasmine sweet and heady, rosemary sharp and piney, lavender calming and clean. Thyme and oregano added earthy depth, mint a cool brightness. The breeze carried them all, mingling and shifting, now flower dominant, now herb. He inhaled slowly, letting scents fill him completely, fresh, alive, speaking of growth and sun and careful tending. He lay there resting his body, senses alive to immerse himself in the world around him. No thoughts of stars or constellations. No urgency to record or discover. Just this, body heavy on soft mattress, breath steady, sound soothing, sense enveloping. Time drifted, unmeasured. Sunlight shifted slowly across the floor. Rest, not sleep. Deep, nourishing rest. As the sun drifted lower in the sky, the astronomer heard a knock at the door. The light had softened to late afternoon gold, shadows lengthening gently. The knock was familiar, warm, inviting. He rose, body relaxed and refreshed, and opened the door to find his neighbors gathered, the fisherman, his wife, the fruit seller, the niece, and more, smiling in the golden light. "There's one more thing we want to show you this evening," they said. Together they walked the winding path up the mountain next to the village. The path curved gently upward, narrow but well-trodden, bordered by wild shrubs and rocks warmed by day. Baskets and blankets were carried once more, the group moving in easy companionship as the sun began its slow descent. The astronomer walked among them, senses still heightened, earth firm yet giving beneath feet, breeze cooling warmed skin, sense of time and sea rising as they climbed. The mountain welcomed them, the village twinkling smaller below, the sea a distant shimmer. Evening promised new wonders, and he was ready, fully present, to meet them. The path was narrower here, and the parade of townsfolk carried blankets and baskets on their heads. As the group left the village behind, the road gave way to a winding mountain path. Narrower now, just wide enough for two to walk abreast, sometimes single file where rocks jutted or shrubs crowded close. The earth was drier here, dusted with fine gravel that crunched softly under sandals, releasing a faint, warm scent of sun-baked stone and wild thyme crushed beneath feet. The townsfolk moved in a gentle, unhurried procession, a living caravan of friendship and anticipation. Many balanced woven baskets on their heads with practiced ease, arms swinging free or linked with companions. Blankets were folded and draped over shoulders or rolled tightly under arms, promising comfort for the evening ahead. Children darted ahead like scouts, then circled back with excited whispers. Elders brought up the rear, steps measured but steady, voices low with stories. The fruit seller led with her characteristic energy, basket steady atop her bright scarf, humming a soft melody that floated back along the line. The astronomer walked near the middle, surrounded by the easy rhythm of the group, footsteps syncing in quiet harmony, occasional laughter bubbling up like a spring. The evening breeze rustled the shrubs around them, and birds followed along above, wondering where the procession of villagers was going. The breeze arrived gently at first, a cool caress after the day's warmth, carrying scents of sea salt from far below and the sharper notes of pine and wild herbs from higher up the slope. It strengthened as they climbed, rustling through low shrubs that lined the path. Tough, silvery-leaved sage brushing against robes, rosemary releasing its resinous perfume with every touch, thorny broom bushes nodding golden flowers in approval. Leaves whispered secrets to one another, branches swaying in graceful arcs. The sound was soothing, a constant, living murmur that wrapped around the group like a lullaby. Above, birds accompanied them, swallows darting in curious loops, their wings flashing dark against the pale sky, a pair of ravens croaking conversationally from a rocky outcrop, smaller songbirds flitting from shrub to shrub, heads cocked in wonder at this unusual evening parade. They seemed to follow out of curiosity. Where were all these humans going as the sun lowered? What adventure drew them upward? The astronomer watched the clicking heels of the woman in front of him and heard the footsteps of the man behind. His senses felt alive and heightened in a way he had never experienced before, even at night. The woman ahead, the baker's wife perhaps, wore simple leather sandals that clicked rhythmically against small stones. Click-tap, steady as a heartbeat. Dust rose lightly with each step, catching golden in the slanting light. Behind, the fisherman's heavy tread, thud crunch, solid and reassuring, carrying the faint scent of salt and nets. All around, the group's footsteps blended, light patter of children, measured pace of elders, quick steps of young women, deeper thuds of men. The sounds layered like music, percussion of human movement against Earth's quiet drum. His senses felt alive and heightened in a way he had never experienced before, even at night. At night, his awareness had been focused upward, eyes straining for faint stars, ears tuned to silence broken only by distant waves or owl calls. The ground beneath had been mere support, the air simply cool. Now, everything sang to him. Sight, late sunlight painting the path in warm gold, shadows lengthening dramatically across rocks, colors deepening, greens richer, earth redder, sky shifting from blue to soft rose at the horizon. Sound, footsteps, breeze in shrubs, birds overhead, voices ahead and behind. Laughter, quiet talk, a child's excited gasp at a lizard darting across the path. Touch, breeze cooling sweat on his skin, occasional brush of leaves against robes, gravel shifting under sandals, the faint warmth still rising from sun-baked rocks. Scent, layered and ever-changing, thyme crushed underfoot, pine from higher slopes, salt carried upward, the faint sweetness of wildflowers hidden in crevices. Even taste lingered, the ghost of honey and fruit from lunch, refreshed by cool air. All of it immediate, vivid, present. When they reached a plateau, they spread out the blankets and unpacked the food. The path opened suddenly onto a wide, flat plateau, a natural terrace partway up the mountain, offering sweeping views of the village nestled far below and the sea glittering on the horizon. The ground here was softer, carpeted with short grass and wild herbs, rocks scattered like ancient seats. The group spread out with practiced joy, blankets shaken open and laid in a loose circle, baskets lowered carefully from heads. Children ran to the edge for a moment, pointing excitedly at their tiny houses below, then returned to help. Food emerged in abundance, each family contributing their finest. Looking around, he realized everyone had brought all of the finest things in their pantries, the farmer fresh vegetables and meats, the fisherman salted herring and calamari, boiled eggs sliced and passed around, and everyone shared wine from an ornate glass jug. The spread was a feast of simple riches. The farmer produced crisp vegetables, cucumbers cool and green, tomatoes warm from the sun and bursting with juice, peppers in red and yellow, carrots sweet and earthy. Meats too, thinly sliced lamb roasted with garlic and rosemary, still tender. Fishermen offered salted herring, silvery and rich, and calamari grilled lightly over morning coals, rings and tentacles perfectly charred. Boiled eggs, peeled and sliced, revealed golden yolks, passed hand to hand with salt pinched from small cloth bags. Bread appeared again, loaves torn and shared, crusts crackling. Cheeses, olives, figs, grapes, all from lunch, but now in evening light tasting even better. An ornate glass jug made the rounds, deep red wine, cool from cellars, tasting of grapes ripened on these very hillsides. The people talked and laughed, but the astronomer sat in silence, taking everything in. Conversation flowed easily, stories of the day's small adventures, memories of past gatherings here, gentle teasing about who brought the best dish. Laughter rose often, bright peals, deep chuckles, quiet giggles. Children chased fireflies beginning to appear in the gathering dusk. The astronomer sat cross-legged on his blanket, plate balanced on knees, but ate slowly, mostly watching and listening. He listened to the stories of his new friends' lives that he had so often ignored before. The baker spoke of his grandson's first steps toward the oven, flour-dusted hands reaching for dough. The fruit seller told of a perfect harvest, trees so heavy with oranges they nearly touched ground. The niece shared garden tales, a rare bloom opening overnight, bees drunk on nectar. Lives full of small joys and challenges, births, harvests, storms at sea, festivals, losses quietly borne. Stories woven into the fabric of days spent under sun, not stars. He saw the way the trees swayed in the wind, casting shadows on the rocks dotting the mountainside. Evening breeze strengthened gently, moving through scattered pines and olives clinging to the slope. Branches swayed in graceful arcs, leaves whispering constant secrets. Shadows lengthened dramatically, dark silhouettes stretching across pale rocks, shifting slowly as sun lowered. Light caught on edges, turning stone golden then rose. He could see the village below and the peak of the mountain above, and he enjoyed the aromas of all the different foods the people prepared. From his seat, the view was breathtaking, village lights beginning to twinkle far below like earthbound stars, higher peaks still bathed in fading sunlight, rocky and serene. Aromas rose in waves, roasting meats releasing garlic and rosemary, fresh vegetables crisp and green, salted fish rich with sea, wine fruity and warm, bread yeasty even now. All mingling with mountain scents, pine, thyme, cooling earth. The astronomer breathed deeply, senses full, sight of vast beauty, sound of friends and wind, touch of breeze, taste lingering, scent enveloping. In this moment, surrounded by earthly wonders great and small, he felt complete. The sun lowered further, painting sky in preparation for stars. But tonight, he would meet them not alone, but with friends, balanced between earth and heaven. Soon the sun began to paint the sky in vibrant hues. The change came gradually at first, a subtle softening of the bright afternoon light into something warmer, gentler. The group sat on their spread blankets atop the mountain plateau, plates mostly empty, wine cups resting beside them, the lazy contentment of a shared meal settling over everyone like a soft shawl. The astronomer leaned back on his elbows, feeling the cool grass beneath the blanket, the faint warmth of the stone where sun had lingered all day. Conversation had quieted to murmurs and occasional laughter, the kind that comes after good food and better company. Then he noticed it, the first shift in the sky. A pale golden wash appeared at the horizon, where the sun hovered just above the distant mountain ridge. It was as though an invisible artist had dipped a broad brush in liquid light and swept it gently across the blue. In all the time the astronomer had sought the stars, he had never before appreciated their opening act. The realization settled over him quietly, like the evening breeze beginning to stir. All those years, decades really, of watching the night sky unfold, he had treated sunset as mere prelude, something to endure while waiting for true darkness. He would turn his back on the western horizon, eyes already scanning for the first faint pricks of starlight, mind calculating positions and patterns. Sunset had been an inconvenience, light pollution to be waited out. But now he watched with the wonder of someone seeing it for the very first time. He had always waited for the sunset to finish and night to fall, but now that he had slowed down, he could admire each shade of yellow, pink, red, and purple as the sun lowered itself sleepily behind the mountain's peak. The colors deepened moment by moment, deliberate and unhurried. First, soft yellow, warm and buttery, spreading across the lower sky like spilled honey. It touched the edges of distant clouds, turning them to glowing gold. Then pink crept in, delicate at first, the blush of dawn in reverse, brushing the undersides of higher clouds with rose-petal softness. The yellow and pink mingled, creating apricot and peach tones that made the astronomer smile involuntarily. He had named stars and traced constellations, but never learned the names of sunset colors, yet here they were, painting themselves across the heavens in quiet splendor. As the sun dipped lower, red joined the palette, deep, rich crimson bleeding into the gold and pink, like wine poured into water. The mountain peak caught fire for a moment, its rocky edges outlined in brilliant scarlet. Higher still, purple began to appear, royal and mysterious, the color of twilight robes. It spread upward, chasing away the last blue of day, preparing the canvas for night. The astronomer sat forward now, elbows on knees, utterly absorbed. His friends noticed his quiet awe and fell silent too, turning to watch the sky with him. The air cooled gently as light faded, breeze carrying the clean scent of pine and distant sea, rustling grasses around the plateau. Birds wheeled overhead in final flights, silhouettes against the colorful sky. The sun lowered itself sleepily behind the mountain's peak, a great golden coin slipping into a velvet purse. Its final rays stretched long across the landscape, painting village roofs far below in warm amber, turning the sea to molten metal. Then, with a last lingering kiss of light, it vanished. The sky held its breath for a moment, colors deepening to their richest intensity, crimson bleeding into violet, gold fading to rose. When the final rays of sun disappeared beneath the horizon, the villagers packed up the remaining food and folded the blankets, ready to go home for the night. The transition was natural, unhurried. Plates gathered, crumbs brushed away, wine jugs stoppered and tucked into a basket. Blankets shaken free of grass, folded with practiced motions, corners matched, edges smoothed. Children helped, sleepy-eyed but content. Elders moved slowly, joints appreciating the lingering warmth. Conversation was soft now, murmurs of thanks, promises to gather again, quiet satisfaction. The astronomer watched, feeling the gentle rhythm of community wrapping up a perfect day. But the astronomer stopped them. He raised a hand as the first began to stand, voice gentle but firm. "Wait," he said. "Now I have something to show you." His friends paused, curious. Blankets half folded, baskets half packed. They unfolded their blankets and lay down on the soft earth, watching the sky grow dark overhead. With quiet excitement, they settled back onto the grass, some on blankets, some directly on the cool, fragrant earth. Children nestled close to parents, heads on laps or shoulders. Elders leaned against rocks, content. The astronomer lay at the center, blanket beneath him, hands behind his head. The sky darkened moment by moment, deep violet giving way to indigo, then to the rich velvet of true night. Glittering white and yellow stars began to poke through the darkness, delighting the villagers watching from below. First one, bright and bold, like a diamond on black silk. Then another, and another. The sky filled slowly, patiently, familiar stars emerging like old friends arriving at a gathering. The villagers gasped softly, pointed. "Look there! That one's so bright." Children whispered questions. Parents answered in hushed tones. The astronomer had seen the stars many times before, but he'd never noticed how their bright light brought out the shadows of the trees and heightened the contrast of the ground below. Tonight, with friends beside him and Earth solid beneath, the stars felt different. Their light, cold and distant yet piercing, cast gentle shadows across the plateau. Tree branches became dark silhouettes against the glowing sky, leaves edged in faint silver. Rocks gleamed softly where starlight touched, grass silver-tipped. The contrast sharpened everything. Dark deeper, light brighter. The world felt etched in quiet beauty. He lay back on his blanket, admiring each constellation as it revealed itself one by one. Orion rose first, belt clear and straight, sword hanging bold. Then the Pleiades, delicate cluster like scattered jewels. Cassiopeia's W shape, the Big Dipper pointing to Polaris. He pointed them out to the villagers, who were appreciative to be sharing in his knowledge. "There, Orion the hunter," he said softly, tracing the shape with his finger. "See his belt? 3 stars in a row." Gasps of wonder. And above, the Pleiades, 7 sisters. Children counted eagerly. The stories flowed gently, not lectures, but shared wonders. Myths of gods and heroes, ancient navigators guided by these lights, seasons marked by their rising and setting. Friends listened, heads tilted back, eyes wide with the same awe he had felt alone for years. But now it was shared, multiplied by company. The night deepened, stars blazing brighter as darkness completed its gentle conquest. A meteor streaked briefly, silent silver across velvet sky. Collective, oh, of delight. The astronomer smiled, heart full. Earth below, stars above, balanced, connected. "I understand why you like to walk at night," his neighbor asked him. "But isn't it also wonderful still under the stars?" The fisherman's voice was soft, almost a whisper, as though speaking too loudly might disturb the gentle magic unfolding above them. He lay on his back beside the astronomer, hands folded behind his head, eyes reflecting the first bright points of starlight. The question carried no challenge, only genuine curiosity, warmed by the shared wonder of the moment. The plateau had grown quiet. Food baskets were tucked away, blankets spread comfortably over the soft grass. The last glow of sunset had faded completely, leaving the sky a deep, velvety indigo that seemed to pulse with possibility. A cool mountain breeze drifted across the open space, carrying the clean scent of pine and distant sea, rustling the shrubs and grasses in gentle waves. Children nestled close to parents, heads on laps or shoulders, pointing occasionally with sleepy excitement. Elders leaned against rocks or sat cross-legged, faces tilted upward in peaceful contemplation. The entire group lay scattered across the plateau like a living constellation themselves, points of warmth and quiet joy on the dark earth. The astronomer turned his head slightly toward his neighbor, a slow smile spreading across his face. The astronomer nodded his head in agreement. The nod was deliberate, heartfelt. In that simple motion, years of solitary searching seemed to settle into something new, something shared, balanced, complete. He didn't always have to be searching for something new when so much beauty revealed itself around him every night. The realization settled over him like the cool night air itself, gentle, undeniable, comforting. For so long, his nights had been quests, pacing farther, climbing higher, eyes straining for fainter stars, mind cataloging positions and patterns, always chasing the next discovery. Beauty had been there, of course, the vastness, the mystery, but it had been a means to an end, fuel for understanding rather than something to simply rest in. Now, lying still on the soft earth, surrounded by friends whose breathing rose and fell in quiet rhythm, he saw it differently. The stars were not diminished by stillness. If anything, they shone brighter, unhurried, eternal, content to simply be. Orion rose steadily in the east, belt clear and proud. The Pleiades clustered like delicate jewels. Cassiopeia swung her throne across the northern sky. Each familiar pattern revealed itself without demand, without need for pursuit. And around him, beauty he had never paused to notice. The way starlight silvered the edges of leaves on nearby trees, the faint glow it cast on faces turned upward, the soft shadows it painted across blankets and grass. The night itself held wonders enough without constant motion. He wanted to fully take it in, not rush to discover the next thing. The desire was new and profound, a quiet hunger not for more knowledge, but for deeper presence. He breathed slowly, letting the cool air fill his lungs completely, then release in a gentle sigh. Eyes traced familiar paths across the sky, but without urgency. No need to name every star, map every movement. Just this, lying beneath the vast dome of night, earth solid and fragrant beneath him, friends quiet breathing a gentle counterpoint to cricket song and distant waves. A meteor streaked briefly, silent silver across velvet dark. Soft gasps rose around him, delight shared, not solitary. He smiled again, eyes tracing its fading path. As they lay there stargazing, the villagers felt their eyelids growing heavy. The wonder of the sky held them for a long while. Questions whispered, constellations pointed out, stories shared in hushed tones. Children asked about heroes and gods in the stars. Elders recalled nights from their youth when the same patterns guided fishermen home or marked planting seasons. But gradually, inevitably, the day's warmth and fullness took their gentle toll. Eyelids drooped. Heads nestled deeper into laps or folded arms. Breathing slowed and deepened. A child yawned widely, the sound small and contagious. Another followed. Soon soft yawns rippled through the group like quiet waves. They began to yawn, and they knew it was time to pack up their things and go home to bed. No one rushed. Movements were slow and dreamy, blankets gathered with sleepy care, baskets closed gently so as not to disturb the night's peace. A few last crumbs brushed away, wine jugs stoppered and tucked safely. Children were lifted into arms, heads lolling against shoulders. Elders rose with quiet groans of satisfaction, joints stretching after hours on cool ground. The astronomer helped fold a blanket, hands moving slowly, savoring the feel of woven while still holding faint warmth from bodies and sun. In a slow and careful line, they tiptoed down the mountain. The descent began in single file along the narrow path, careful footsteps on gravel and stone, guided by starlight now bright and clear. No lanterns needed. The sky provided gentle illumination, silvering the way ahead. They moved like a quiet river flowing home, parents carrying sleepy children, couples arm in arm, friends walking close with murmured goodnights. The astronomer felt the path beneath, noticing each pebble or twig he passed over. With every step, awareness deepened. Pebbles shifted slightly under sandals, smooth and cool, some round, some sharp-edged. Twigs cracked softly or bent aside. Grass brushed ankles, cool and damp with evening dew. Earth spoke to him directly now. Asterisk here is a stone warmed by day, cooled by night. Here a root reaching across the path. Here soft soil giving way. Asterisk. He walked deliberately, feeling each contact, how weight shifted from heel to toe, how balance adjusted to uneven ground, how muscles worked gently to guide descent. The stars illuminated the way home, and as they walked, the villagers whispered of all they'd seen in the sky above. Starlight bathed the path in silver, bright enough to see faces, outlines of trees, the gentle sway of shrubs. Shadows stretched long and soft behind them. Whispers floated back and forth. Did you see that bright one, the one he called Sirius? Orion. I'll never forget his belt now. The sisters, Pleiades, so delicate. Children murmured sleepily from parents' arms. Will the stars be there tomorrow? Soft answers, always, little one. Always. The astronomer listened, heart full. His knowledge, once solitary treasure, was now gift shared, woven into others' memories. When they reached the village square, all the townspeople waved goodbye. The square lay quiet under starlight, fountain murmuring softly, plane trees rustling leaves like gentle applause. Houses glowed faintly from within, windows shuttered for night. The group gathered one last moment, hugs exchanged, hands clasped, quiet thanks and promises. One by one, families peeled away down familiar lanes, footsteps fading, doors closing softly. Waves and whispers. Good night. Sweet dreams. Until tomorrow. The astronomer stood watching until the last figure vanished, stars bright overhead, earth cool beneath his feet. Home called, not to sleep alone with charts and scrolls, but to rest beneath the same sky that watched over all. He walked the final lane slowly, senses still alive, night air cool on skin, stars companionable above, earth steady below. At his door he paused, looking up one last time. Then, with quiet gratitude, he stepped inside, ready for sleep beneath the glorious night sky, balanced at last between heaven and home. One after another they retreated into their homes, finding cozy spots on soft mattresses and under warm blankets. The astronomer too went back to his house, but instead of crawling into bed, he brought a pillow and blanket outside. He laid them down on a soft patch of grass and rested his head on the pillow. Tonight he would dream of stars again, but this time he would fully realize their beauty, and the beauty of the earth beneath them. He slowly let his eyes close as the light breeze and gentle hooting of owls lulled him to sleep under the glorious night sky. And so ends our gentle retelling of the astronomer's tale, a reminder to look both up at the wonders above and down at the beauty beneath our feet. I hope this soothing story has helped you feel calm, grounded, and ready for deep, peaceful sleep. If you enjoyed drifting off tonight, please like this episode, share it with someone who needs a relaxing bedtime listen, and subscribe to Sleep Stories so a new story finds you each week. Thank you for being here. Sweet dreams. Good night. Crescent moon.